Hello Internet, I'm the Disney Brain and welcome to the top. We've talked about some of the music that helps elevate many DCOMs, and in that video, we discuss how individual songs are woven into the films they come from. Now, we're taking things one step further, as we discuss entire soundtracks and what makes them quality. And since this is the Disney Brain, we'll be focusing primarily on how these soundtracks work within the structure and the narrative of the movie itself to advance it as a film, focusing more on how the music is used rather than the music itself. How good the movie is, or how good the songs may be, will both be factors too, but less important ones here. So, with all that said, let's kick things off with number 10. Several musical sequels can lay claim to having a superior soundtrack compared to its predecessor. Camp Rock 2 is not one of those movies, but even still, it does have a lot more musical variety than the original, and that really works to this movie's benefit. Whether it's Bringing You the Fire, Demi and Joe belting out a duet, the Joe Bros paying homage to some of the all-time musical greats, or Nick doing his best Jason Mraz impression, the soundtrack embraces more styles than most, even if not every song ends up being overly memorable or overly important to the bigger picture, and anytime Demi can let loose and really flex those golden pipes is a definite win. Where this soundtrack falls short, however, is in how it doesn't incorporate music into the movie as well as it could have, with some exceptions of course. That might not matter as much to some of you, but I think it makes a big difference when some of the movies higher up really get it right. But, either way, a fine start at number 10. Teen Beach Movie is just an average DCOM in my estimation, with plenty of problems to go around. But it also had one of the most innovative soundtracks of all time. How so? Well, to understand Teen Beach Movie, you first have to understand that it's an intentional parody of its own genre. It's both a film about musicals and poking fun at them, as well as a musical itself, for better and for worse. And in pursuing that idea, you do get some unapologetically high-energy bouncy tracks. But you also get songs like Can't Stop Singing, which essentially makes my point for me. And before that, you also have the track Like Me, which not only serves as a good musical debate of sorts among the 4 different perspectives present, but also helped to prime the characters for their development in the sequel. Most of the other songs are just kinda there for fun, but that's more of the intention here, and when you do have tracks like Don't Stop the Music, sometimes fun is really all you need, in addition to how many of its songs properly capture the 60s aesthetic that it's going for. It's not the smartest concept Jeffrey Hornaday has ever directed, nor is it executed well all of the time, but it does have one of the liveliest soundtracks of all time, as well as a couple of choice tracks that really function well into the narrative of Teen Beach as both a film and a franchise. Wow! Not counting the honorable mentions, Jump In is the only soundtrack on the top 10 that's neither a musical nor a movie about music. But I think what makes it stand above even some actual musicals is how it uses its songs. My Turn Now is one of the best DCOM songs I've ever heard, a pure power track by Keke Palmer, and as I explained the last time we talked about DCOM songs, it does well to get at the heart of her character and what she goes through in the movie. Push It to the Limit is likely the most popular song on the soundtrack, and for good reason, it is very catchy. But what really makes this a top 10 soundtrack are the less obvious entries. Jordan Pruitt's Jump to the Rhythm is not only a good song thematically, but samples of it are used to set the urban New York tone and vibe, and some of the lesser known songs in the soundtrack also help bolster that feel. At the end of the day, this movie didn't have a ton of focus on music, but by utilizing the music it did have in a way that accentuates the setting, the screenplay, and the characters, it easily becomes one of the best DCOM soundtracks of all time. The most viewed DCOM ever also boasts a damn good soundtrack. Not every track is a winner, but on average, there's a lot of songs that I'd say are better than in the original, and I've said as much in my review for the movie. But that having been said, I don't think this soundtrack is as good on the level of film integration, which is the primary focus here. The original utilized both overt and subtle elements to present the music, but here, it doesn't follow that same philosophy, instead, conveying almost every song with the same tenor and overtness as Stick to the Status Quo. That works to an extent because it allows Ortega to do what he does best, with a heavier focus on group performances. What Time Is It, Every Day, I Don't Dance especially, there's a palpable energy in all of it. It works in similar ways as most musicals to advance character dynamics and progress the plot for the most part, but it doesn't work as effectively here because a lot of the subtlety is lost. So, as weird as it sounds, yes, I do like the High School Musical 2 soundtrack more, but I think the songs thereof fall a bit short of the first in terms of making the film as a whole better.
You are the music in me. Yeah. Together we can walk into space, save the human race.
Both this movie and the quartet that brings the soundtrack to life essentially invented the musical DCOM, and what really makes this particular music special is the way it adds to the Cheetahs themselves and emphasizes the traits and perspectives that they represent. The soundtrack embraces this very consistent urban-centric vibe that defines this movie, so that works as good integration into the setting, similar to how Jump In's music functions. But then, it goes one step further with definitive numbers such as Girl Power, Cinderella, and Cheetah Sisters. These tracks are meant to represent the Cheetah Girls both as a musical group and as figures for sisterhood and female empowerment. Taken in a vacuum, these songs are really good at getting to that message, especially with Cinderella, a direct assault on the damsel in distress archetype. The soundtrack could have been even higher, but the film itself never really found too many great ways to emphasize those same characteristics when the girls weren't performing. Later movies would give them more of a chance to embrace the traits they set up here, but just in the context of this film, it's one of those cases where the music and the movie weren't as in sync as they could have been. But even so, still most definitely an all-time great soundtrack. We pretty much all know the songs, the lyrics, maybe some of the dance moves. It's High School Musical after all. But let's go deeper than that. Even though this movie can be over the top at times, its best moments come from utilizing subtle elements in its screenplay to accompany the music. The gradual way that start of something new progresses can be looked at as a parallel to the plot of the film. The way Get Your Head in the Game phases both in and out of musical mode to give us a better understanding of Troy as a character works very well. And even when Kenny Ortega really flexes his choreography muscles and goes all in, it's beautifully presented using his understanding of space. But what works most of all is how the penultimate song in Breaking Free is used as not just a character resolution, but as a way to bring all of the East High factions together, including the faculty. On the surface, the music of High School Musical is very memorable, but what then makes this soundtrack a great fit for the movie it's a part of is how the music itself is used to enhance the film even beyond jazz squares, and in doing so, gave us a well-constructed part 1 of Disney Channel's most definitive franchise.
I told you not to do the jazz squares.
It's a crowd favorite. Everybody loves a good jazz square.
As a film that revolves around music, but isn't a musical strictly speaking, Let It Shine understands how to incorporate not just the songs themselves, but the ideas behind the songs. This soundtrack may not be as memorable as High School Musical, but what matters more here is how the music fits into what the film is trying to do. The best examples of this are Moment of Truth and Me and You, for different reasons. Moment of Truth is a no-holds-barred battle that is well acted, well performed, and resolves the movie in such a complete way, given everything that happens beforehand. Me and You is maybe not as important of a song overall, but it's a very smart one because of how it's cleverly hinted at that Cyrus has been creating this duet for a while as a means to tell Roxy the truth. The scene packs just the right amount of emotional punch, and the decision to have the reveal be a performance instead of just some random person overhearing the truth was brilliant. As a whole, the soundtrack has its high points and its lesser numbers, but it's a movie that understands music, and that's apparent in every single detail of the film. And because of that, even some of the less noteworthy tracks are effective in developing characters, progressing the movie, or, in some cases, both.
See, I'm sorry.
Camp Rock is a DCOM I've watched more times than any other, but it's not favoritism talking here. I think this movie is simply one of the all-time best at using its music in conjunction with its characters. Outside of 2, maybe 3 songs, the entire film uses its tracks to give us a peek into what the characters are currently going through, especially during Final Jam. Whether most of the songs are good or not is another debate, but they do a great job at conveying conflict, progressing character arcs, or resolving those arcs all together. And what brilliantly ties it all together is how Demi and Joe's characters share the stage for what I believe to be the single greatest DCOM song of all time. And my stance on that is all about how their duet was built up to. Using Demi's voice to inspire Joe to write Gotta Find You, then having that track flow seamlessly with This Is Me, the song Demi unknowingly inspired him with, was exceptionally smart. In a movie about the power of music, they use their soundtrack as a catalyst to not just propel their own overarching narrative, but to push the characters further as people. Heck, even the opening number is a good foreshadow for Mitchie's main dilemma of identity. In this movie, maybe more so than any other DCOM, the soundtrack was always going to be the most vital aspect, and here, I think that emphasis paid off. No soundtrack does better at embracing and capturing the feel and the spirit of its location while also delivering diverse and quality musical numbers across the board. It's so beautifully tied to Spain as a location and works that into the choreography, lyrics, and aesthetic of the performances. These points for me make Strut easily one of the best Cheetah Girls songs, if not the best. The movement, the energy, the acoustic guitar, the bilingual lyrics, it all works to provide a captivating musical tour of Barcelona. It's no coincidence that every Kenny Ortega DCOM so far is represented in this video, and he's at his best here. Additionally, one of the most crucial and understated aspects of this soundtrack is how diverse it can get while still feeling genuine to the film. Marisol singing with the other Cheetahs is a uniquely intimate song. It's Over is a uniquely layered and performed song, and Amiga's Cheetahs has all the flair and explosiveness that we've all come to expect from Kenny Ortega, as well as functioning in a similarly brilliant way as to how Me and You worked in Let It Shine. It's simply one of the most complete soundtracks to ever grace the network. Cover to cover, start to finish, the songs aren't just good, but they almost all matter to this movie, which has several problem areas plot-wise, but is at its best when the Cheetahs are performing. But what broke through to earn the #1 spot? We'll get there. But first, let's bring in some honorable mentions.
The days are longer, the nights are shorter, the sun is shining. Just notice how they walk. One heart, one song, upside down, 'cause we're gonna have fun, to the core, rotten to the core. I'm rotten to the core. They got the beat, they got the beat. Yeah, I love you like a love song, baby. I love you like a love song. Here comes a breakthrough. Here comes a day. Here comes the moment that you gotta go through.
There's only a handful of DCOMs that can toe the thin line of popularity and quality, and Lemonade Mouth is by far the best example of that. This film does so much right and gets so much right in terms of how it works as a complete film that the details surrounding its powerful soundtrack can almost get lost in the mix. Just like how other soundtracks on this list can express and progress characters, Lemonade Mouth can do both at the same time and then some. Here, we have another film about music, primarily people and their conflicts, but also music, and the way their songs build from more simplistic tracks when they just start off to larger, grander tracks later on is paying attention to the simple but vital detail that yes, their sound would change when they have a bit more time to work on it, and the idea of practicing and creating music as plot points works well to place even more focus on the songs as an end result, and that's what makes Terminate the song it is, in addition to being a solid parallel of the film itself to that point. But it also makes She's So Gone and More Than a Band two of the better DCOM songs out there, since they both function within the plot as well as progressing the characters as both individuals and as a 5-member team. But let's not forget about Mudslide Crush and their contributions. What was also smart is giving them a more rock-heavy sound as a counter to the leads, in addition to making their lyrics at times blatantly insulting. And then you realize Mudslide Crush is actually a clever metaphor for some of the self-absorbed, meritless music that actually exists today. Using its music in such thoughtful and advanced ways through both bands present more than anything is what earned this soundtrack the top spot here. No other DCOM soundtrack can claim to have arguably its two worst songs actually make the movie smarter as a whole, but Lemonade Mouth pulls it off by giving every single track a sensible purpose, from humble beginnings to a grand finish and everything in between. All of that helps build towards one of the greatest accomplishments that Disney Channel has ever produced. And for me, that earns this film the added accomplishment of greatest DCOM soundtrack of all time. Lemonade Mouth is #1, so the list is done. Make sure to share your own thoughts on the best DCOM soundtracks down below. And of course, thanks for watching.